Hello, Marcus Brunzi here from Trek Culture. 100k followers. Get in. Yes, get in. Huh. Thank you very much, Chris, and the Trek Culture and What Culture Gang, to answer the hardest question ever for people who talk about their favourite TV shows week in, week out. You want us to pick our favourite episode of Star Trek? That changes for me every single hour of the day, let alone day of the week. Right now, I'm rewatching Deep Space Nine, episode that really stood out to me, season 7, early on, I think it's episode 4, Take Me Out to the Holosuite. It's an episode within which Solok from the Takumbra comes over to Deep Space Nine and goads Cisco into a game of baseball. This is Cisco's sport, right? He's so into baseball. And the result of that is us seeing sides of characters that we wouldn't usually see. I mean, the true side of Worf, whose suggestion during a baseball game is to just kill somebody, just kill him, he says. And of course, we see Odo giving his famous "you're out of here," which, you know, you never really get to see Odo opening up many times during Deep Space Nine. So that's really special for me. It's a heartwarming episode. There are actually dark undertones if you look at it, but I don't want to get into that right now. But yeah, it's an episode that really stands out to me as one of my favorites there. So there you go. Take Me Out to the Holosuite, Deep Space Nine, season 7, episode 4, if I remember correctly. Thanks once again for 100k followers, man. Peace.
So congratulations, Trek Culture, on 100,000 subscribers. It is well earned. You guys do fantastic work. Very fun episodes to watch, and some really great personalities on there. You guys are awesome. So on behalf of TrekYards, congratulations, Trek Culture. Well earned. When Trek Culture approached me and asked me to talk about one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek, I said, okay, might need 7 minutes. It's a question that can't be answered. You got multiple series, you got multiple episodes, and new content being created all the time. It's like it's replicating. So this question is going to get harder and harder and harder the longer that Star Trek continues. It already is a very difficult question, but one that immediately popped into my mind was Trials and Tribulations. It is like a love letter to Star Trek. It's a love letter to the fans. TOS is presented in a beautiful light. It looks fantastic. Interlaced, intermixed with new footage. Just some really good times. It's the epitome of a perfect Star Trek episode, as it feels very Star Trek. And it's just a fun little romp. Plus, DS9 is a fantastic series, and to tie that together with TOS in such a seamless way was fantastic. Funny little moments, of course, like Worf refusing to explain about the Klingons' look. It might not be my favorite every day of the week, but Trials and Tribulations is definitely up there in the top 10 of all favorite Star Trek episodes, because it is so memorable, it is so great, and just seeing those two eras cross over with each other is fantastic. So I'm just going to go with Trials and Tribulations. It's a pretty simple answer to a very difficult question.
My favorite episode is In Theory, which is the one where Data dates Lieutenant Jenna Desora as like an experiment. He goes around the Enterprise getting relationship advice from like Picard and Worf, and he gets sex advice from Riker because that's who you go get sex advice from on the Enterprise. Other than that, there's like this fairly low stakes sci-fi B story where somebody falls through the floor, but it's all just like very run-of-the-mill life aboard the Enterprise kind of stuff. It's a comfort food episode, and that's my kind of Star Trek.
If I had to tie up all my favourite themes of sci-fi, they all seem to converge on one Next Generation episode. We've got time travel, we've got parallel universes, the chaos created when you make changes to the timeline, and Q. So I'm going to say Next Generation Tapestry is one of my favourites. I love it when Q's involved in an episode because you never know which way it's going to go, whether it's going to be tense and dramatic like when we first met him and, crewman died as we were first introduced to the Borg, or if it's going to be something really silly like Cupid and we end up going to a fictional Nottingham Forest and going through the whole Robin Hood thing. But I felt that the Tapestry episode was right there in the middle. There was still some sort of feeling that Picard might be dead at the beginning, some feeling that, he could abandon him in this alternative world. There is a moment where Picard fears that he's been left and he's going to have to live out his life in this sort of non-leadership role, and it would have been hell for him, as he is the Picard who made the decisions that turned him into a stronger leader. We get to see Q coming in as more of a comedy character, which I think the emphasis on Q went from being a dramatic villain, went through even into Voyager. He became sort of yes, there was chaos, and yes, there were deaths on the crew, but we got to see a more playful side of him, which I enjoyed. I mean, it could have been taken down a really dark route. So that is why that one is my favourite. It's not the most action-filled episode. I mean, there is the battle or the fight with the Nausicaans, no more than a pub brawl. But yeah, as far as sort of storyline goes, I would say that has to be my favourite episode.
I know Dan's picked it already, but technically I did call it first. My favourite episode of Star Trek is Tapestry, and not for some profound reason or personal connection. It's just because anytime I have to summarise Picard and Q's relationship in any Trek Culture video, I play this clip.
Morning, darling.
And that's it. That clip just perfectly captures Q and Picard's relationship. Picard Season 3 needs to end with Q welcoming Picard to the afterlife. If that doesn't happen, I'm going to be very upset. What I really find annoying though is that they use the episode title Q&A for a short trek instead of the episode where Q finally does some splaining. So once again, thank you very much for the 100,000 subscribers. I'm literally about to order the plaque off YouTube now. Cheers.
Wait a second, they're wanting me to be a part of their celebration. They've seen me on Twitter, right? No, really, are we like blackmailing them? There's no way you could watch my channel and want to be associated with it. Hey guys, I want to say congratulations to Trek Culture. This is phenomenal, just really cool. When it comes to me and what I like and the best episode, I'm gonna have to go with Drumhead. One of the pinnacle episodes of Trek, in my opinion at least. The Drumhead teaches us that we shouldn't blame others for who they're related to. It challenges us to take a look at someone and really see our reflection. It honestly is an episode that shows how our society is today. Sometimes we'll blame people for associating with someone or for being something that they're really not. We're all hammers and the world is full of nails. The Drumhead teaches us that we have to be vigilant in our own ideologies and when analyzing other people. I mean, the chain is forged with just one thought, one idea, taking away one right, and it could not be more accurate to what we're seeing in today's society. I absolutely love the Drumhead and what it represents. Everyone should watch it, not once, not twice, but monthly. We need to be reminded that as people, we get into our clans, we get into our tribes, and that we think that we're the ones that are right when we really need to have more empathy. It is one of the most awesome Trek episodes, if not most awesome sci-fi episodes. Once again, congratulations Trek Culture, and I can't wait to see what else comes.
My favourite episode of Star Trek is Time's Arrow. The episode opens with Data's severed head being discovered underneath San Francisco, having been there for 500 years. Now this is where the episode really shines, because Data in the past is just brilliant. You get to see Mark Twain shows up, we get to see Guinan's background, we get to see Data just being Data in the past. One of my favourite scenes is at a poker table where he beats some card sharks at their own game, and we don't see it happen, but we just cut to him with all his winnings. It's just a brilliant, brilliant moment. It's a lot of fun. It's a great episode. It's a great series finale. It sets up the next season by ending on a cliffhanger. The second episode is also great, where the rest of the gang join them. And yeah, it's Data in a time travel story. What more could you want?
Thanks so much to everyone who subscribes. Honestly, we get to do what we do because of you, because you subscribe, because you engage. So I just want to say that really, really quickly. You're an absolute share of legends, and I can't personally give you all a big slap on the back because, Corona. Also, there's 100,000 of you. But know that I'm doing it in my mind. My favourite episode was DS9, Season 4, The Visitor. It just ticks all the right boxes for me. We've got Tony Todd as a grown-up Jake. The whole storyline between him and his dad, it's In a way, it could have just been a little bottle, forgettable episode, and it turns out to be one of the most moving episodes in the entire franchise. Also, big shout out to Captain Nog. Aaron Eisenberg, you are sadly missed. Sadly missed. It just came along at the exact right time, and just every performance in it nails it. Absolutely nails it. But I mean, that final scene between older Jake and Ben, there is not a time I don't get choked up watching that. So that's my favourite episode. Guys, thanks so much again. 100k, you absolute shower of beautiful legends.
Hi guys, Sam from Trek Culture here. I just wanted to chat quickly about one of my all-time favourite Star Trek episodes. It's called The Enemy Within from the original series. In a nutshell, a guy covered in yellow ore is beamed up and it does something vaguely pseudo-sciencey to the transporters. This leads to Captain Kirk being split into two when he beams up to the Enterprise. This creates a good Kirk who is intellectual, logical and compassionate, and an evil Kirk who, despite not getting a goatee, is like a wild caveman full of anger hunting for brandy. The first great thing about this episode is the performance that Shatner gives as the good Kirk. It's more nuanced, it's more subtle than usual for him. Maybe this is because he can get out his over-the-top for the cheap seats theatre-style acting as the evil Kirk. I also love this story because it's only the 5th episode of the series and they were already diving into things like the human psyche, i.e. that the so-called good parts of our personalities, such as rational thought, are useless without the ability to make a decision and follow it through. On the other hand, the so-called bad parts are only bad when they're out of control. When controlled, they can actually help us to become more rounded and make better choices. This feels quite deep for a show that had to reshoot its pilot due to the first one being too cerebral. I also love this episode for a sentimental reason. I remember walking into the living room when I was younger, finding my dad watching this exact episode. We watched the episode together and it was then that I realised that my dad likes Star Trek like me. It's a fond memory of mine. All in all, it's a great episode that captures the nature of what Star Trek is, at least for me.
One of my favourite Star Trek episodes is the Voyager episode, Message in a Bottle. This episode I think is very special for a number of different reasons, and in fact more special than you may think. But of course it features the EMH, but in this one he gets to be the hero that basically starts the chain of events that gets Voyager home. The EMH is sent from the Delta Quadrant to the Alpha Quadrant to the Prometheus. The Romulans have taken over the ship, killed the crew, and on their way to Romulus. It's a really bad day, and while the EMH is not designed for conflict, he's learned a lot, and so very quickly he's on the ball and he makes a friend, the EMH Mark II. Both these characters, Rob Picardo and Andy Dick, are wonderful comedic actors with wonderful comedic timing. It all goes pretty well actually, until you get to the big, quite epic fight at the end. It's a space battle with things we don't really see in Voyager, Federation and Alpha Quadrant ships. It's 3 Romulans versus 2 Defiants and Akira and Prometheus, and for the time the CGI was phenomenal. But luckily Andy Dick pushes a button with his elbow and he activates multi-vector assault and saves the day. And it's extra special because this is the very first time Voyager makes a link with the Alpha Quadrant and lets them know they're not a lost starship, that they are alive and they're trying to get home, and that does change everything. Can you imagine the relief of the Voyager crew? It changes the entire game, and now starts Pathfinder, leads to Endgame, leads to Reg Barkley being in the show, etc. This is the start of that. So it is, and it's actually almost halfway throughout the entire show, season 4, so it's very much the turning point. It's pretty powerful stuff actually, and I think it holds up really well. Message in a Bottle, fantastic episode. There you go.
My all-time favourite Star Trek episode. Oh, that's easy. Sub Rosa. Yeah, that's Sub Rosa. The Next Generation's 7th year, mid-season masterpiece. No, not a traditional Star Trek episode by any means. I love it nevertheless because it boldly widened the universe's storytelling possibilities, giving us a spacey, racy, period horror/thriller. Think Tales from the Crypt, but deeply erotic and set in Star Trek's equivalent of Scotland. Who wouldn't want to watch that? It has everything. It's easily the best Beverly Crusher episode, an episode that perfectly showcases Gates McFadden's powerful acting versatility as she tearfully bids farewell to her dear beloved Nana, tells that don't light that candle guy to go do one, and then gets it on in probably one of the sexiest ghost sex scenes ever filmed. The episode also drops the stunning revelation that Star Trek does in fact exist in the same universe as both Star Wars and Back to the Future. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you don't believe me, go and give it a Google. Right now. Well, not right now, after you've watched the rest of this video. There we go.
Hey guys, it's Bree. So, when trying to decide on my favorite Star Trek episode, it really came down to series. Star Trek Deep Space Nine is my favorite series, so it had to be an episode from Deep Space Nine. It really came down to 2 episodes though, In the Pale Moonlight and Far Beyond the Stars. In the Pale Moonlight is one I know is very popular, a lot of people are gonna choose it, and it's one that I also really like because it really develops the plot of the story. However, I have to go with Far Beyond the Stars because it's the only Star Trek episode that I've ever watched that every single time I watch it, it brings me to tears. And to me, a Star Trek episode is phenomenal when it invokes emotion. So I have to go with that one. Avery Brooks's performance in that one is phenomenal. His monologue at the end absolutely never fails to make me cry. It's really hard for me to say that any other episode beats that one for me.
Hello, I'm Pedro, an editor for Trek Culture. Thank you guys so much for 100,000 subscribers. The only reason we can do what we do is because you guys watch us. So thank you so much. Now about my favorite episode. That's a tricky question because I have many favorite episodes. But I had to go with DS9's His Way. And there are a number of reasons for that. I mean, if Nana Visitors Thinking Fever isn't enough for you, then I guess, I don't know. No, but seriously though, I really love this episode and there are a number of reasons for that. Mainly because it's an Odo episode and I really love Odo. It's a character with whom I have a really strong connection because he's this introvert guy who can't speak with people very well, and that's basically who I am. So in this episode he tries to overcome this side of his personality, and it's like watching myself trying to overcome it and become a better person. And they introduce Vic Fontaine, who helps him along the way, and so it's really funny because everything that Odo says, it's like exactly what I would say. So watching the episode is like basically watching myself talking with someone else and then trying to figure things out. And even the body language is the same, and it's really funny. And also inspiring because in the end, he does manage to overcome his problems and become a better person and gets to be with Major Kira. So, maybe if I watch it enough times, I'll get there eventually and become a better person myself. And that's why I love it, and that's why I'll never be tired of watching it again and again.
Alright, so first of all, wow, 100,000 subscribers, that was not supposed to happen. But anyway, my favourite ever episode of Star Trek. It's not going to surprise any of you who saw my exceptional video on why Sisko is the best captain, that it is In the Pale Moonlight in Deep Space Nine. Now, I know you're probably sitting there thinking, oh, of course he's picked this. It's that episode about how Ben Sisko deceives the Romulans and it's all about him. But no, that is a common misconception. That is not what the episode is about. That is not what makes the episode great. That is the episode that proves that in desperate circumstances, we are all the same. And it proves that better than any other episode of television I have ever seen. Because at the end of the day, you can have your morals and your values and you can grandstand about them all you like. When the chips are down, we all go down to that base level. Now, other shows will do that by having people be scrambling around in holes and getting muddy in the ground, but it wasn't about that. Sisko saw which way the tide of the war was going, and he set out to make a plan to fix it. And despite the fact he was a Starfleet officer and he run the thing by Starfleet and he was, I'm going to live with it and all this, he becomes Garak. Now, the whole thing about this episode is that Sisko is high-key the best character in the show, but Garak is low-key the best episode in the show. So to have them come together like this and end up being the exact same person is just a brilliant piece of television. Yes, the monologue and the acting and the drama and the whole to-camera thing, delete that person log, yes, that is brilliant. But the fact that when it gets right down to it, okay, what they do is they murder a political figure for this war. Now, Sisko, a man who is Federation through and through, who has these morals, has these values, he goes down to that level to win a war. He resorts to those practices. But Garak, a man who already has those values, those practices, is already at that level. He does that to save the Federation. So it's not about Sisko going down to that level, it's about Garak going up as well. It's so much better an episode than people think it is, and people already think it's a brilliant episode. I think it's genuinely one of the best bits of television I've ever seen, one of the singular best performances on television I've ever seen from Avery Brooks. Shout out Andrew Robinson as well, though. But it's the best, man. It's the absolute best. But then again, so are all you lot for subscribing, so take your pick.